This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, with Pesach coming up, we're going to discuss today a very interesting topic, and that is exactly how long. What? Exactly how long were Bnei Yisrael actually in Mitzrayim? Now the pasuk says, "U'Moshe Bnei Yisrael sheyashu b'Mitzrayim shloshim shana v'arba me'ah shana." Pasuk says that Klal Yisrael were in Mitzrayim 430 years. And then the pasuk says, "Vayhi miked shloshim shana v'arba me'ah shana." It's at the end of 430 years. Vayhi be'etzem hayom hazeh yatzu kol tzivos Hashem me'eretz Mitzrayim. At the end of 430 years, so Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim. It's actually quite strange that Klal Yisrael weren't even in Mitzrayim half that amount of time. They weren't even there half of 430 years. They were there 210 years. So what exactly?
From where you count?
Yeah. If you want to count back to when the world was created, you could get more numbers. But it says how many years they were in Mitzrayim. Very nice. We're going to see if you count back from when Yitzchak was born, you count back from the Bris HaBasarim. Yeah, you could. If you count 1,000 years from before the world was created, you could get even more years, right?
Why you even start to count? It says Moshe Bnei Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim. You're talking about Eretz Mitzrayim, not the counting and counting.
What are the simple meaning of the words? What does a pasuk mean? What does a pasuk mean? So Rashi, off in art, Rashi says, look, Asher Yashvu b'Mitzrayim, the Moshe Bnei Yisrael, that they were in Mitzrayim. Rashi sticks in, parenthetically, Achar Shar HaYeshiva Sheyashvu Gerim B'Eretz Olahem. After being in many other places in other lands, in other words, the pasuk doesn't mean they were in Mitzrayim 430 years. They were in Mitzrayim after being, you have to stick in, you have to shtup into the pasuk, right? Chesuri machzor avahachik tani. Like you have in a Mishnah. The Gemara has a kasha on the Mishnah. Gemara says, what's going on? The Gemara says, don't worry. Chesuri machzor, we left out a few words. Now, what does Rashi mean when Hashem left out words in the Chumash? Chas v'shalom. But that's what Rashi seems to say. Achar shar ha-yeshivos, after all the other dwelling places, sheyashvu geirim be'eretz leilahem, shloshim shana v'arba me'ah shana. Now let's get the cheshbon. How do we know that Bnei Yisrael were not actually in Mitzrayim 430 years? So Rashi says, Bein HaKoil, all together, Misha Noilad Yitzchak, from the time Yitzchak was born, Ad Achshav, Hayu Arba Me'ah Shana. Why are we counting 400 years? First of all, the pasuk says 430 years. Yeah. But Rashi says from the time that Yitzchak was born, you have 400 years. Why? What's the Groise Gadol with Yitzchak being born? Because Hashem told Abraham, Ki ger yizaracha be'eretz leilahem arba me'ah shana. Your children will be gerim for 400 years. No, Abraham has to have children. So from the time Yitzchak was born, and Abraham had children, mishahayaloi zera li Abraham, from the time that Abraham had zera, niskayim ki ger yizaracha. What about, where do the 30 years come from? Right, it says there in Mitzrayim 430 years. Ushloshim shana hayu mishanigzura gzeres ben habasarim ad shanel ad Yitzchak. There were 30 years from the bris ben habasarim, from the time Abraham was promised children in Eretz Yisrael, until Yitzchak was born. Now that took 30 years. So if you want to know how do you get 430 years, from the day they left Mitzrayim, you count back 430 years. That will get you to the bris ben habasarim. You count back 400 years. That will get you to the time that Yitzchak was born. Okay, says Rashi. Why am I saying this doichek? Maybe Klal Yisrael were actually in Mitzrayim 430 years. He said, no, b'yav shalom be'eretz Mitzrayim levada. You can't say they were in Mitzrayim alone 430 years. How do I know? So Rashi says, look, Kahas went down to Mitzrayim. Kahas' son was Amram. Amram's son was Moshe. Moshe, how old was Moshe when he left Mitzrayim? 80. You count all the years of Kahas, all the years of Amram, all the years until Moshe was 80, I believe you only get 355 years. And Rashi adds, why would you count all the years of Kahas and all the years of Amram and all the years of Moshe? The years of Kahas overlapped the years of Amram. The years of Amram overlapped the years of Moshe, and therefore we have to say, how long were they actually in Mitzrayim? 210. So where do you get 400 from the time Yitzchak was born? Where do you get 430? Bris ben habasarim. Rashi ends off, V'zeh echad min hadvarim shashinu l'talmai hamelach. Right? Like try explaining that to a guy. that when the Torah says 430 years, it doesn't really mean in Mitzrayim, it means from the Bris Bein HaBasarim. And therefore, when the Septuagint, when they translated the Torah into 70 languages for Talmai, they translated into Egyptian, into Greek, so they made a change. They made a shinoi. What was the shinoi? The Gemara Megillah says, look at number 3. This is how the Chachamim translated this pasuk for the Talmai HaMelech. U'moishav b'nei Yisrael asher yashvu b'Mitzrayim. They stuck in 2 words. U'v'shara ratzos arba me'o shana. So when the Chachamim translated the Torah for Talmai HaMelech, they stuck in the words u'v'shara ratzos. Okay, this way Talmai wouldn't, have any Bible criticism, right?
So this Rashi took it from there.
Yeah, Rashi is quoting the Gemara Megillah. You'll ask, what does the pasuk mean? Why are we calling it Asher Yashvu b'Mitzrayim? It was mainly in Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was the main spot of Geros. But Rashi says you could count when Abraham was in Chevron. It says Eretz Migurehem. What does Eretz Migurehem mean? He lived like a ger, like a sojourner, right? Or when Yitzchak was a ger ba'aretz, right? Okay. But here's the problem. The problem is, it's very nice we could trick Talmai and we could add words to the Torah. What about to the Jews, right? We're not so gullible, we're not so naive that we could just, stick words in. The Torah doesn't say, U'moishav b'nei Yisrael asher yashvu b'Mitzrayim u'v'shara ratzos. The words are, U'moishav b'nei Yisrael asher yashvu b'Mitzrayim. Like you said, Ein mikra yotzi midei pshutai. How do we understand this pasuk? The only way Talmai can understand the pasuk is if you make an addition. You have to add words to the Torah. How do we understand it? Okay, so the Malbim explains something very interesting. The Malbim says that the word Moishav does not mean a time, but rather it means a place. Okay, and we'll explain. Let's read the Malbim. Look at number 4. U'moishav b'nei Yisrael asher yashvu b'Mitzrayim. Ladas ha-mefarshim, according to the Mefarshim, specifically Rashi, Hischil ha-cheshboin mi-bris bein ha-basarim. The cheshboin starts from the bris bein ha-basarim. Now, Rabbi say, how old was Avram Avinu when Yitzchak was born?
100.
Yes. How old was Abraham when he left or Kazdim to come to Eretz Yisrael? 75. Now, if Abraham was 100 when Yitzchak was born, and that's when the 400 years start, when do the 430 years start?
70.
30 years before from when Abraham was? 70. That means how old was Abraham at the Bris Bein HaBasarim? 70. So could somebody please explain something to me? Where did the Bris Bein HaBasarim take place? In Eretz Yisrael.
No, in the...
Yeah, the Chumash says. No, in Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, it's a pasuk in Chumash. Yeah.
Yeah, the Chumash is there.
Yeah, in Eretz Yisrael. So, because I have a question, right? The Bris Bein HaBasarim was when Abraham was 70, and it took place in Eretz Yisrael. How old was he when he left Ur Kazim to come to Eretz Yisrael? 75.
He went back and forth.
So you have to say, the Malbim says, when he was 70 years old, he came to Eretz Yisrael for the Bris Bein HaBasarim. He left Eretz Yisrael back to Ur Kazim, and 5 years later, Vayetze Abraham, right, Me'or Kazim, Lalechas Atzkana, Abraham ben Chamesh v'Shivim Shana, right, he was 75 years old, right, when he left Haran. So in other words, he was 70 in Israel and Eretz Yisrael at the Bris Bein HaBasarim. He left Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, and at 75 he went back. Hashem said Lech Lecha. In other words, yeah. In other words, the Nisayon of Lech Lecha was not the first time Abraham went to Eretz Yisrael. Yeah. He had already been in Eretz Yisrael before. That's what the Malbim says.
He got the place up, and then he went for Aliyah.
Yeah. Then he went. Yeah. so that's what Rashi says.
That's what they did.
Look what the Malbim says. Shahaya l'daita b'yos Avram ben Shivin. According to Chazal, Abraham was 70 at the Bris Bein HaBasarim. Shloshim shana koydem shana l'ad Yitzchak. 30 years before Yitzchak was born. V'yachar Bris Bein HaBasarim, and after the Bris Bein HaBasarim, Chazar l'Charan, he went back to Charan. V'chazar shenis l'Eretz Yisrael k'shaya ben ayin hey. He went back a second time to Eretz Yisrael when he was 75. V'yarba me'o shana nechshavu miyom shana l'ad Yitzchak. You count 400 years from the time Yitzchak was born. Because the primary galus was in Mitzrayim. Amar Asher Yashvu b'Mitzrayim. So in other words, the Malbim is saying simply when it says that they were in Mitzrayim 430 years, it just means mostly in Mitzrayim, but there were other places they were as well. Says the Malbim, also a very interesting idea. Uladaiti. My opinion, says the Malbim, is Ramaz. By the way, the Beis Halevi writes about the Malbim that he said there's some psukim in Tanakh. The Malbim is the only one who is able to explain it, specifically in Tehillim. No one else explains the pasuk. The Malbim is the only one. Beis Halevi says on a specific pasuk that the Malbim is mefarish. He had to have been mefarishid beruach hakodesh. In fact, the Briskers say, that there are 3 achronim that have a din of a rishon. 3 achronim of din. The Vilna Gaon, obviously Reb Chaim Brisker, right? That's what the Briskers say. And the Malbim. 3 achronim have a kayach. They say they're a kayach of a rishon. Anyway, the Malbim says like this. Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
And I heard from someone who wants to be Moisef for B'kiv Eger and the Chsam Sefer. Okay. Uladaiti Ramaz HaKosav Oy Davarecha. Says the Malbim, the pasuk has another meaning as well. Ki Shem Moishav Loiba B'Shom Makom Al Hazman. The word Moishav does not refer to a time, Rak Al HaMakom Shesham Yoshev. It refers to a place. For instance, K'may Bayis Moishav Ir Chayma. A house that is of habitation in a walled city. The word Moishav there refers to a certain place. Or B'chol Moishvay Seichem, in all of your dwelling places. The word Moishav means a place. V'chadoima. The Eretz Goshen Nikra Moishav V'nei Yisrael. The word Moishav V'nei Yisrael doesn't mean that they actually live there. It just means that was designated for them. That was a designated habitation for the Bnei Yisrael. Ratzaloymar Shahaya Makam Shiftam. That's where they resided. The Limaid, and this pasuk is teaching that if one would want to know when was Goshen settled, it was settled 430 years to the date before they left. Were any Jews there? No. But it was designated as the Jewish people's Moishav, as the Jewish people's habitation. The Limaid, we learned, Ki Eretz Goshen Nisyashva Be'ez Bris Ben Abasarim. The day Hashem came to Abraham and he said, Ki Ger Zaracha, some Egyptian guy established Goshen as a city. For who? He didn't know it. For the Jews. Okay? Sheme'az Huchan Lios Yishav L'Bnei Yisrael. From that time and on, that place was designated as a place of habitation for Bnei Yisrael. Okay, so at the age of 70, when Hashem came to Avram Avinu, Eretz Goshen was settled. Was Avram Avinu in Mitzrayim at that time? No, he was in Eretz Yisrael at the Bris Ben Abasarim. After 5 years, Avar Avraham in Mitzrayim, Avraham left Eretz Yisrael to Mitzrayim, right? He comes to Eretz Yisrael. Immediately there's Rav Ba'aretz, there's a hunger. He has to go down to Mitzrayim. Where do you think Avraham went? Doesn't say in the Chumash. Says the Malbim, this pasuk is telling us that when Avraham Avinu at age 75 left Eretz Yisrael to go to Mitzrayim, he went to Goshen. Bahira Ba'aretz. We don't know where in Mitzrayim. Malbim says this pasuk is saying they went to Goshen. V'nasanoi lo sheva sham im Sinai k'mashikaz Chazal v'alkein nisyashiv Yaakov Eretz Goshen. Why did Yaakov choose Goshen to live in Goshen? What, he liked Goshen? Because he knew on the way to the Catskills there's a place called Goshen, so nice office, similar bottom. No. What?
Maybe it was Yosef selected Goshen.
You know why? Because Avraham lived in Goshen, says the Malbim. Yaakov picked Goshen because when Avraham came down to Mitzrayim, Avraham lived in Goshen.
But Yaakov didn't choose to go to Goshen, but Yosef designated it.
Paro gave Eretz Goshen to Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, Yosef gave him Goshen. He didn't choose Goshen.
Why Goshen? Because that was the ancestor.
Not Yaakov, Yosef.
That was, Yosef knew that this was the land already Mizman Avraham Avinu. Okay? So says the Malbim, when the pasuk says U'Moshav B'nei Yisrael Asher Yashav b'Mitzrayim, it doesn't mean they live there. It was a Moshav. So then you'll ask, so then why only 430 years? Maybe it's still a Moshav. The answer is, says the Malbim, as soon as Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim, Goshen was over batal. Nobody lived there. It dried up. It was over. Okay, Chsheyatzu Yisomi Mitzrayim Nechrava Umeyaz Batla Min HaYishav V'Yisrael Chashvu Cheshvan Shalom Eis Bris HaMasarim. The Torah that writes U'Moshav Bnei Yisrael Shloishim Shana V'Abraham Yishana. It's not saying that we lived there 430 years. It's saying it was our Moshav. It was our Moshav 430 years. Right? Okay.
If you Google Earth today,
yeah,
the segment of where Goshen was is the only spot in the whole Egypt that showed you is very green.
It's still green?
Just that area.
Okay.
Unusually.
And if you look in Sefer Yoshua, the land of Goshen is listed as a city in Eretz Yisrael. Look at the Radak in Sefer Yoshua.
Goshna.
Goshen may have moved. Okay.
Cover moved to go down Sinai, so Goshen moved back here.
That's what look at the Radak. Okay. So we have a satisfactory answer. Right? We would never be able to explain this to Tamai HaMelech, that when the Pasuk says that we were in Mitzrayim 430 years, the word Moshav doesn't mean we live there, it means it was our place of habitation. So therefore the Chachamim, what did they do? They were Meshana. They added the words Uveshar Aratzos, but for us, we don't need to add the words Uveshar Aratzos. For us, the Pasuk doesn't mean we were in Mitzrayim 430 years. The Pasuk means we had a place in Mitzrayim. We had real estate in Mitzrayim 430 years. In other words, you have a guy, he lives in New York, but he has a Florida license plate. Why? Because he has an apartment in Florida. For how long? For the last 30 years. He never went to Florida, right? He's never even seen Florida. He doesn't know what Florida is. But for tax purposes, he likes to have a Florida license plate because he has a Florida apartment, right? But he was never there. So that's what the pasuk means. We had real estate in the land of Egypt 430 years.
Who gave it to us? What do you mean we bought it, we have it?
Hashem allowed it. Hashem
designated
it.
Oh.
Hashem designated it. It was designated for us. Right. Here's the problem, right? Everything seems to be fine and dandy. The pasuk is Kipshutai, Moshe b'nei Yisrael asher yashu b'Mitzrayim shloshim shana v'yarba me'ah shana. Here's the problem. Here's where it gets juicy. The Gemara in Sanhedrin. Says the Gemara. This is a Maisa in Perak Chelek, Daf Tzadi Aleph Amud Aleph. Shuv hamachas bo b'nei Mitzrayim lodanam Yisrael lefnei Alexandros Maikta. Some Egyptians, they were living in Israel, and they come to Alexander the Great, and they have financial issues. Amrullah, they say to him, Harehu Aimer, the pasuk says, you Jews, when you left Mitzrayim, right, you took our jewelry. Now, when you took it, you didn't buy it, you borrowed it, right? It was a loan. Okay, it was a loan. Pay back. Pay back, right? Pay back. Hashem gave grace to the Jewish people in the eyes of Mitzrayim, and we borrowed their stuff. So the Mitzrayim said, "Tinu lanu kesav v'zav shenataltem mimenu." Pay up, right? It's long enough. Pay up. We won't even charge interest. Just pay up.
Why can't they charge interest?
They were happy to settle with just the cost value, the Mitzrayim. So there was a guy named Gvia ben Pesisa, right? Gvia ben Pesisa. He was a hunchback, right? He was a hunchback. He was a simple guy, and he tells the Chacham, look, let me deal with the Mitzrayim. If they beat me, so they'll say, what's the big deal? They beat a Pasha Yid. And if I beat them, so it's really going to be good for us. So Amar Gvia ben Pesisa Chachamim, Tenuli Rishos, give me permission, Ve'elech va'adan iman, I will go and adjudicate with them. I'll fight with them. Lufnei Alexandros. Im yatzchuni, if they beat me, Amru lahem. So say to them, Hedyu shabanu nitzachtem. You beat a simpleton. And if I'll beat them, Amru lahem will say to them, Toras Moshe Rabbeinu nitzachtem. You were defeated by the Torah. Fine. So the Chachamim gave Gvia ben Pesisa permission. V'halach v'dan imahim, and he went and he fought with them. Amar lahen, he said to them, where are you bringing your raya from that we owe you money? From the Torah that says we borrowed your gold. I'll bring you a raya from the Torah. What's the raya?
Slaves.
U'moishav b'nei Yisrael asher yashvu b'Mitzrayim shloishim shana v'arba me'ah shana. We were in Mitzrayim 430 years. Tinu lanu schar avoda, pay us up. Of the workload of how many people? Shoshishim riboy sheshibaratem b'Mitzrayim. You have to pay us the workload of 600,000 Jews who worked in Mitzrayim. How long? 430 years. Shloishim shana v'arba me'ah shana.
We equal.
Right, so fine. We'll return the gold, no problem. We'll give you the gold, the earrings, whatever you want, all the golden pharaohs and the golden mummies. We'll give it back. You pay us what it cost 600,000 Jews to work 430 years. Not 600,000 goyim, right? Jews charge a lot more than goyim, right? Try to get it right. It costs more. So you got to pay us the workload of 600,000 Jews for 430 years. So Alexander said it's a good taina. What do you say? What do you say?
It's not halacha like this. If somebody doesn't want to pay you, you cannot steal from him.
But doesn't mean they could be mitzi from me. Once you took it, right? Once you took it.
Maybe it's a good time.
Takva kayin. We got to learn the sugi of takva kayin, right?
What is Takva Kaim?
Takva kayin is a sugi in Bab Metzia. You know, if a kayin grabs matanos misafek, once he has it, could you be mitzi from him? Okay. So basically, Alexander Mokdim said, okay, we'll give them 3 days time. 3 days were over. they skedaddled, and the Chazal say that year was Shemitah, and they left their fields planted, and we had what to eat during Shemitah. What? No, they're not chayiv. Exactly.
That's exactly why it's
No, but that's why their field had been growing, and they left their fields, and we took it, and we had what to eat during the Shemitah year. Okay? Ad kan l'shayin, the Gemara, Gavia, the Mitzrayim said, give us back our jewelry. The Jews said, pay up 430 years worth, and the Mitzrayim had no taina. So I have a question for you.
Since then, Jews are lawyers.
What do you mean? What was Gavia ben Pesisa saying that you owe us 430 years work of work? We were only in Mitzrayim 210. The pasuk.
They look like the Torah. He said,
What?
you bought both from the Torah.
Yeah, but the Gavia ben Pesisa is not lying to them. This is printed in the Gemara. The pasuk says we were in Mitzrayim 430 years. Even according to Gavia ben Pesisa, even according to Talmai HaMelech, even if they went lefi Talmai, it was only Be'eretz Mitzrayim uveshar haratzos. And if you want to go like the Malbim, it's only Moshe. We had real estate in Mitzrayim, but we didn't work in Mitzrayim 430 years. And you could add, by the way, how many years did we actually work in Mitzrayim? We were there for 210. How many years did we actually work in Mitzrayim? 86. Only 86 years. So what's the Gemara talking about? What's Gavia ben Pesisa saying back? That, Moshe b'nei Yisrael sheyashu Mitzrayim 430 years. We were in Mitzrayim 430 years. At most, 210. Or at most, you want to say, from Yitzchak's birth, 400. But where did the added 30 years come from?
Where do you get 86 from?
We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Okay, so we'll start with Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz wants to know, Taisus and Psachim asked the following question, right? We say, every Shabbos, Zeicher liyetzias Mitzrayim. Taisus out, what in the world does Shabbos got to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim? How is Shabbos Zeicher liyetzias Mitzrayim? I understand Shabbos is Zeicher l'maaseh bereishis. Hashem created the world in 6 days, He rested on the seventh day. How is Shabbos Zeicher liyetzias Mitzrayim? Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. Another question. He wants to know, what does the pasuk mean? U'Moshe b'nei Yisrael asher yashu Mitzrayim 430 years. It's not 430 years. Even if you want to say like Rashi and like what we said to Talmai HaMelech, u'v'shar haratzos, that only gets you 400 years. Where did the added 30 years come from, right? The way Rashi stuck in the words asher yashu b'Mitzrayim achar shar ha'yeshivos, fine. You want to count Chevron, you want to count Abraham and Yitzchak wandering around Eretz Yisrael, Gesundheit, count that. But where do you get another 30 years? Why would you count from the Bris Ben Absarim? The Bris Ben Absarim wasn't Geros, they weren't traveling, they weren't sojourning then. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. When Bnei Yisrael were in Mitzrayim for 210 years, the plan was what? For them to work only during the week. The plan was not for them to work on Shabbos. Hashem wanted them to rest on Shabbos. But Mitzrayim went overboard. And they worked Bnei Yisrael 7 days a week. So in the course of 210 years of being in Mitzrayim, how many years worth of Shabbos were there?
30 years.
1/7 of 210. What's 210 divided by 7? 30. That means there were 30 years worth of Shabbos that they should not have been working, that they were working. That's how we get 430. It's 400 years, including the other lands. 210 years in Mitzrayim. But out of that, those 210 years that they're supposed to be in Mitzrayim, 30 of those years they should have had a break. On Shabbos, they should have had a break. But instead, the Mitzrayim enslaved them. So we could add 30 years to the Cheshbon, and that's how we get 430. And that is why Shabbos is Zeicher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because whenever we rest on Shabbos, we remember, Baruch Hashem, Shabbos is a day off. Because if Shabbos wasn't a day off, then we would still have to make up another 30 years of Mitzrayim. It's only because Shabbos is supposed to be a day off that Hashem counted the work that we did in Mitzrayim as another 30 years of work, and that's how we get to 430. Let's read this. Let's read it inside.
But the question, Brad, how do we, the salaries we're supposed to get for the vote?
Oh yeah, we haven't explained that yet. We haven't explained that yet.
Chronologically, is it 400 years or 430 years?
430 years from the bris ben Absarim, 400 years from the birth of Yitzchak, 210 years in Mitzrayim.
Don't they say that the 210 was the day and night was the equivalent to 430?
Some say that, yeah.
It's only 420.
But we're not going to use that for the share today.
That's only 420.
I'm sorry, I just don't get
You're great,
I
great.
just don't get the arithmetic.
From the time of the bris ben Absarim,
You're saying 1/70th of 210 is 30, and you add that to
I'm adding that to the 400.
what?
I'm adding that to the, in other words, like this.
You add that. It's
That's an opinion of Rabbi Glatstein.
He said, why you add the 30 to the
Why should
400? Add it to the 210.
Because, no, to the two, the pasuk, we could read the pasuk, listen, when the pasuk says, Umaysha b'nei Yisrael asher yashu b'Mitzrayim, 430 years, Rashi learns that to be after living in other lands as well. But that addition will only get you up to 400. It doesn't get you to 430. We're trying to come up with another 30 years. So the suggestion is that the 200 years of Mitzrayim, we really worked overtime. Out of that 210 years, 30 of the years we should have been off. Every seventh day we should have been off. But we weren't. So we could add 30 years out of the 210 to the 400. Okay? If you like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't like it. What?
Are there two? One pasuk says 430. Is there a pasuk that says 400?
Sure.
That's the whole thing with the stereo.
Yeah, that's that the pasuk says. Ki ger yazaracha be'eretz lo lahem arba me'er shana. Yeah, arba me'er shana. Yeah. We're just getting started now.
This is the warm-up.
Yeah.
If you said the Jews were in Egypt at 210,
Yeah.
they were not slaves for the whole time, though. They were not working in Shabbos for the whole 210 years.
Correct, but Rabbi Yonasan Abishitz in this particular paragraph is assuming they were. Okay, you're right. For this cheshbon, you have to assume it was a full 210. Okay, that's what this piece is going.
Because it was only 86.
Okay. Let's move on because let's move on.
But Joseph lived to 110. He was 30 when Yaakov came in.
Okay.
So
You want to know why we're counting the full 210? Because this pasuk doesn't say they were working. This. We'll talk after. Okay, we'll talk. Let's move on. Okay. Look at number 7. A very interesting psukim over here. These psukim discuss the tsar that Bnei Yisrael had when the Shibud began. So the pasuk says like this. Look carefully. Vayhi bayamim harabim. It was in those many days. Vayamas malach Mitzrayim. Vayeanchu Bnei Yisrael mino avoda. They groaned from the avoda. Vayizaku. They cried out to Hashem. Vatal shavasam el ha Elokim mino avoda. Their outcry went up to Ha Elokim. Vayishma Elokim es na'akasa.
Din.
Vayiskar Elokim es brisa. Es Avram es Yisrael. Vayar Elokim es b'nei Yisrael. Vayeda Elokim. How many times does Elokim appear? 5 times. 5 times. And they're extra. Vatal Shavas. It could have said Vayishma es na'akasam. Vayiskar es brisa. Vayar es b'nei Yisrael. Vayeda. Why again? Nacham al Elokim. How many times? Enough with the Elokims. And why the first time it says Ha Elokim? It says Vatal Shavasam El Ha Elokim. And the next 4 times it's just Elokim. Okay. In the Haggadah, right before the Arba Banim, we say Baruch Shenasan Torah LiYisrael Baruchu. Basically, in the middle of the Haggadah, we interrupt ourselves. Hashem, thanks for the Torah. Why are we interrupting ourselves in the middle of the Haggadah to, give a shout out, Hashem, thanks for the Torah? Well, maybe a lot of other things to thank Hashem for. I mean, we didn't say anything about Matan Torah now. We didn't say anything about Gain Torah. We're actually still in Mitzrayim. We're talking to the 4 sons. Why are we thanking Hashem for the Torah? What does it got to do with anything? So, the Shibbolei Halakha brings down, one of the Rishonim brings down, Yesh Mefarshim, there are those who say, Lefi sheroitze lid roish mikrois halalu haksuvim keneged arba banim. Since we're about to darshan psukim, right, we're about to bring down many psukim, ba'avor zeh, right, v'higara talabincha, right, we darshan many psukim. So therefore, maschil beberchas haTorah, we begin the Haggadah with berchas haTorah. I mean, I made a berchas haTorah in the morning. Why do I have to make another berchas haTorah for? I mean, every time you learn at night, you make another berchas haTorah? What?
Night is a new day,
no? No, not for berchas haTorah. You make a berchas haTorah every night? We don't do that. Once a day. Unless, it's a raya. It's a raya, you're supposed to take a long nap on Erev Pesach, right? And Rabbi Akiva Eiger has a tzad, right? That you're supposed to make, if you take a long nap during the day, Mishabur brings down, there's a tzad to make a berchas haTorah again. So, it's a raya for the Haggadah, you're supposed to sleep Erev Pesach. That's what it means. Why are we making a berchas haTorah? Okay. We have a most... Yes.
I forgot, where does it appear in the Haggadah?
Right, as an introduction to the Arba Banim. Arba Banim. I'll tell you in the very beginning of the Arba Banim. It's like a berchas haTorah before we darshan all the psukim. By the way, I'll just tell you, very interesting. The Abarbanel says that we're about to explain the mitzvah of Pesach to the Chacham, to the Rasha, to the Tam, to the Eni Yad Elishal. Which means the Torah has something to say to everybody. Right? It has something to say to the Chacham, something to say to the Rasha. Wow! What a great Torah! The same Torah has an answer to the Chacham, to the Rasha, to the Eni Yad Elishal, to the Tam. That requires a new berchas haTorah. If we're able to, with one Torah, answer every type of person, that requires a tremendous shvach. Okay, but we're going to say something different. Okay. We have a piece over here from the Toras Chaim, on Masechta Chulin. Toras Chaim was written by Rabbi Avram Chaim Shur. Was one of the early Achronim. He was nifter in 1632, so he was one of the early Achronim. His father was a Talmud of the Ramah, and his father was the Rebbe of the Bach. Okay, so we're talking one of the early Achronim. And Rabbi Avram Chaim Shur was a descendant of one of the Bali HaTosis, Rabbi Yosef Bechar Shar, and he came from that dynasty of the Rishonim. Okay, he says like this. The Medrash says, why do we have Daled Kaisais the night of Pesach? The remez to the Daled Kaisais, says the Medrash, is from the dream of the Sar HaMashkim. When the Sar HaMashkim had a dream, he said, Va'etenes Kais Pare B'yadi, right? And he repeats the word Kais 4 times. So since the word Kais appears in the dream of the butler, right, of the wine butler 4 times, that is a remez to the mitzvah of Daled Kaisais. So Toras Chaim says, what shaykhis does the dream of the Sar HaMashkim got to do with the mitzvah of the Daled Kaisais? I mean, why? Because, he's having a dream, Yosef's interpreting the dream, because he says Kais, Kais, Kais 4 times, that's a remez to the Daled Kaisais, says the Toras Chaim. What was the purpose of the dream of the Sar HaMashkim? The purpose was for Yosef to interpret the dream, and based on that interpretation, he would rise up to become the king of Mitzrayim, bring Yaakov Uvanov down to Mitzrayim, start the whole process of being in Mitzrayim for 430 years. The purpose of the dream of the Sar HaMashkim was to set into motion going down to Mitzrayim, and thereby coming out of Mitzrayim. So when Yosef hears the dream of the Sar HaMashkim, Yosef understands that this is not just a dream of how we're going to go down to Mitzrayim. This is a dream of us being in Mitzrayim. This is a dream of us getting out of Mitzrayim. And Yosef understood, when he sees and he hears the dream of the Sar HaMashkim, he understands that even though we're only supposed to be in Mitzrayim, that we're supposed to be in Mitzrayim 430 years, Hashem is going to take us out early. He understands from that dream that because the gefen, heinetzu, right? It's sprouting, it's budding early. Everything is coming very quickly. He understands from the dream of the Sar HaMashkim that even though we're supposed to be in Mitzrayim 430 years, God is going to take us out a lot earlier than expected. How much earlier? Well, we have a Messiah, there's a Medrash Chazis that says, how long did Klal Yisrael actually serve in Mitzrayim? How long were they in intense bondage? 86 years only. From the time Miriam was born, that's why she was called Miriam, a lashon of mar, bitter. From the time, don't give it away, right? From the time that Miriam was born, they were only served intense labor 86 years. So out of 430 years, what percent did they serve in Mitzrayim? 86. What percent is 86 over 430? 1/5. 1/5. That means they were going to be let out 4/5 early. How does Yosef see this in the dream? He sees in the dream, the Sar HaMashkim is having the dream about the budding grapes quickly sprouting forth, quickly blossoming. And he hears the word kais 4 times. He realizes we're going to be led out of Mitzrayim 4 chalakim early. Out of 430 years, how many years did they work? 86. How many 86s are there in 430? 5. There are 5 groups of 86 in 430 years. Yosef understands that they're going to be let out of Mitzrayim 4 chalakim of 86 early. One 86-year period, they'll work in Mitzrayim. 4 86 periods, they're going to go scot-free. They're going to be patur from. They're going to get out of. Where does he see that? In the 4 kaisais that the Sar HaMashkim has. Says the Torah Chaim. Why when Bnei Yisrael are leaving Mitzrayim, it says, V'hinei Mitzrayim noisea achreim, the Sar of Mitzrayim is running after them. Why is the Sar of Mitzrayim running after them? You know what he's saying? Get back here. You still have how many years left? 4 times 86 is? Use your calculator. You got to bring your calculator.
320, 332.
344.
344. The Sarei Shel Mitzrayim is saying, you've only worked 86 years, get back here, you still have 344 years left. Why did the Yam not want to split when Bnei Yisrael are about to cross the Yam? The Yam said, you still have time to do. You've only done 1/5 of what you need to do. Why did Bnei Yisrael, when they're in the Midbar, they said, Nitna Rosh v'nashuva Mitzrayim. Why did Bnei Yisrael want to go back to Mitzrayim? What, they're Meshuggah and Kap? They're crazy? They want to go back to Mitzrayim? Because they knew what happened to the Bnei Ephraim when they left early. They were killed.
All died.
So the Bnei Yisrael said, we've only done 1/5. Maybe Moshe Rabbeinu is making this whole thing up and he's telling us to leave now. We still have 344 years to do. Let's go do our service and then we'll leave b'shalom. That's why Bnei Yisrael said, Nitna Rosh v'nashuva Mitzrayim. So since the dream of the Sar HaMashkim represented not just Yosef coming to power, but the whole Bnei Yisrael stay in Mitzrayim, and the leaving Mitzrayim, so Yosef sees and he hears the word kais 4 times, he realizes we're going to leave 4 parts early. Says the Torah Chaim, hold on to your socks. The gematria of kais
is 86.
The Dalit kaisais of the night of Pesach, each kais takes away 86 of the years that we were supposed to be in Mitzrayim. Yeah. We served in Mitzrayim 86 years. Each one of the Dalit kaisais that we have the night of Pesach, the first kais, it's a kais of Yeshua. Baruch Hashem, we were able to get out of that set of 86. Second kais, Baruch Hashem, we left that set of 86. The third kais, Baruch Hashem, that set of 86. The 4 kaisais are memayet. They saved us. That's why we have 4 lashonos of geula. Each kais, for each of the lashonos of geula, was goyal us from 86 years that we didn't have to do. Says the Torah Chaim, I have a new pshat in the pasuk. Vachamushim alu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. It doesn't only mean 1/5 of the Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim. It means Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim after having only served 1/5 the time. That's what it means. Vachamushim b'nei Yisrael. I broke it up. This is in Beis. This is in Beis.
So nice.
Okay.
If you say,
It's so nice.
Yeah.
that's an overall question.
Yeah. We're only getting started. Yeah.
No, we said
Huh?
Mitzrayim 430 years from the bris, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now in the Haggadah we're saying it was 210 and Pisha Vesakate. I mean, it's supposed to be 400. There's 210.
There's 210.
190. So how does that? How can we reconcile these two shaltim, these two perushim?
The different. Each number has a different significance.
But I mean, if the
We're not explaining. We're not.
in other words, when it says we were avodim.
We're not going to be addressing that. So.
It's
Yeah.
like, even though we weren't actual, but so why do we have to come with the Chishev Vesakate?
We'll see. We may still need that. Okay? So that's the first step. The first step is that the meaning of Achamushim Olu B'nai Yisrael is they left after having only served 1/5 of the time. 430. 430. Okay. Says the Taras Chaim. Remember when there's famine in the land of Egypt? So what happened? Yosef was supplying everyone with the food. So first, the people paid the money. Tamu HaKesef, the money was gone. Then they gave the livestock was gone. Then they sold themselves as avadim, and Yosef said the following: "You give me all of your wheat, but you know what? Only give me 1/5. You could keep the other 4/5." Right? It's a pasuk in Parshas Vayigash. Right? The pasuk says like this. The pasuk says.
Is the Chumash is there?
Pasuk says, "Vayomer Yosef Elam, hein kanisi aschem hayom esad masan lefaroi, hey lochem zara v'hoye betfuos, v'nasatem chamishus lefaroi." Give 1/5 to Parai. Why is Yosef being so generous? He's only making them give him 1/5, because Yosef is very smart. Yosef knew that when we're going to leave Mitzrayim, the angel of Mitzrayim is going to say, "You only did 1/5 time." He knew the Yam is not going to split. You only did 1/5 time. So Yosef said, No. When you're my avadim, I'm only going to charge you 1/5, so that at any time in the future, anyone has a taina that you're only doing 1/5 of your service, you tell them, "Oh yeah, you owe us that 1/5. That's how I dealt with you, and therefore mida k'neged mida. That's how you have to deal with Bnei Yisrael." That's why, says the Taras Chaim, the Zayar says, "Ma ra hayam vayana." Why did the sea split? Arana shel Yosef. Why? Because until now the sea didn't want to split. The sea said, "You still have 4/5 of the time." But when it sees Yosef, they say, "Oh, he's the guy that only charged us the 1/5. What can I do? We got to split." That's the pshat in the Zayar, says the Taras Chaim. Why the sea split when it saw Arana shel Yosef?
You could ask, this is, I don't know if it's a good question, but
you know what? There's a lot of information, so we'll hold it off for a few minutes, okay? Let's see what we could get. We only have a little bit of time left. The Gemara says, the Chumash says like this. The Chumash says that Yosef did not enslave the Kohanim. Right? The Kohanim, they could still work for Parai. Kohanim could still work for Parai. Why? Why didn't he enslave the Kohanim? Because Yosef knew that in Mitzrayim, the Leviim, the Kohanim would not have to do Avodah, only the other Shvatim. And he was afraid that when we leave Mitzrayim, the Sarish Shel Mitzrayim would say, "Hey, very nice, you guys did the Avodah, but you Kohanim and Leviim have to stay back, and they have to fulfill and be mashlim the Avodah that they were supposed to do." So Yosef, in preparing for the Yetziah, he was moichel the Kohanim for being his avadim, so that when it came time for Klal Yisrael to leave Mitzrayim, they would be able to leave the Mitzrayim, and mida k'neged mida, nobody would have any tightness. Okay.
I'm sorry. What
Yeah.
Kohanim are we talking about here?
The Kohanim in Shevet Levi did not have to do avodah. Did not have to.
Kohanim.
Yeah, from the Bnei Levi. Bnei Levi. Yeah, the Bnei Levi.
The guy with the Mitzrayim.
What?
The Mitzrayim.
Okay, but the Bnei Levi were off, right? Shevet Levi didn't have to do avodah. They were the priests. They were the clergy. The Jewish clergy did not have to do avodah in Mitzrayim. Says the Taras Chaim. Why specifically Yayin? Because we know, he brings down, Mitzrayim was the Kor HaBarza, was the iron furnace. What was it purifying us from? It was purifying us from the Chet of the Eitz Hadas. Says the Medrash, the Eitz Hadas was Geffen. It was wine. And therefore, according to that man, the Omar, therefore to purify us from the Zuamas Hanachash, which was Yayin, so therefore we have the mitzvah of Arba Kaisais. What does Yosef send to his father? Remember when Yaakov hears word that Yosef's alive and he's in Mitzrayim? Yayin Yashan! Yosef sends to his father, Yayin Yashan, says the Taras Chaim. Why old wine? Old wine. Very old. Going back to Adam Arishon. Says the Taras Chaim, Yayin Yashan, Bigamatria, 430. Wow. He was being Meramis to Yaakov. It's time to start the count of 430 years. Yayin Yashan. Okay. We move on.
It's so nice.
Pesach Mitzrayim, they had to prepare the animal when? Shabbos HaGadol, right? This week, Shabbos HaGadol is coming up. How many days before? 4 days. Why 4 days? Regularly, the Karban Pesach, you buy it in the morning and you have it. You don't have to prepare it for 4 days. Why 4 days, Bikar Mimon?
They have
to look for
No, not only Pesach Mitzrayim. Every year, Karban Pesach, you could buy that morning. You don't have to prepare 4 days before. Doesn't mean... Why?
So why is Aseri B'Nisan if it's 4 days?
What?
Why is in named on Aseri B'Nisan?
No, it was only
if
1 year.
It was only 4 days.
Because Karban Pesach is Yadalet, right? Karban Pesach is Yadalet.
No, why we call it Pesach HaGadol, I mean Shabbos HaGadol, because of the Aseri B'Nisan. But if it was 4 days, so why they choose only 1 day?
That's when they took it. They took it on Shabbos. That was when they started the mitzvah.
It was 4 days.
Okay. Okay. Says the Taras Chaim like this. We know Hashem came down and He saw Ad Aram the area. We were naked and bare. We didn't have any mitzvahs. So Hashem needed to give us a zechus to be mezakeh us to take off 4 parts of the Shibud. 86, 86, 86, 86. That's why we prepared the Pesach Mitzrayim 4 days early. Each day was a zechus to take away from 1 chelek of the 86. Says the Taras Chaim, if you look in Ois Hey, he says, that's why we have a mitzvah of matzah. Matzah represents leaving early. Shalayachlu lehismameah. How many kazesim of matzah do you need to eat?
5.
4 kazesim. Why? Maitzi. How maitzi? For matzah, for kairech, and afikaimen. The 4 kazesim of matzah. Matzah represents the fact that we didn't have time. We got to rush out. Hashem was mir es haketz. That's what. How mihir? How fast? 4 parts. That's why we have the 4 kazesim of matzah. Says the Taras Chaim. By the way, he says that's why Chazal say in the Zechus, Shalaishinu es Shemam, Shalaishinu es Lashainam, Shahayu Gedurim be'arayos, Shahayu Gedurim be'lashan hara, and Malbushim. Find me where it says that. It's quoted, but that's not what the Medrash says.
But that's Sino. That's Malbushim.
Shino es Shemam, Lashainam, Gedurim be'arayos. Maybe be'lashan hara. Maybe Lashon hara. 4 zechusim. Each zechus took away from 1 chelek of 86. Says, now listen to this. Says the Taras Chaim. But he says like this. Chas v'sham, to say Hashem was just mavater 344 years. How could you say such a thing? Kol ha'omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu Patron Yivachu Ma'ohi. Hashem, anyone who says God just overlooks things, he'll be overlooked. So Chas v'sham, to say Hashem overlooked 4 chalakim of 86. Says the Taras Chaim in Ois Hey on page number 3. That's why, because we left Mitzrayim 4 set of 86 years early, we had to be thrown into 4 Galios. Madai, right? Bavel, Madai, Yavan, and Edom. It's not that Hashem just overlooked these 4 86-year periods. We had to make it up. We had to make up the time. The 4 Galusim are to make up the 4 sets of 86. So you'll ask, what do you mean? Galus Bavel is 70 years. Galus Edom is 2,000 years? Says the Torah, Hashem knows how to figure out exactly what corresponds to what. He knows. After
the Gula, you'll give us a shiur on that too.
Maybe, but we'll understand that. But Hashem knows how to figure it out. And don't say that this was, the plan B. Hashem knew from the very beginning when He told Avram Avinu, "Ki ger yeh zaracha be'eretz lo lahem arba me'ah shana." What does the pasuk say? V'hinei ema chashecha gedoyla noifeles olav. Says the Medrash, ema is Bavel, chashecha is Madai, gedoyla is Yavan, noifeles is Edom. Says the Taras Chaim, Amazing thing. Moshe comes to Hashem and he says, the Bnei Yisrael are going to ask me, what's your name? What should I tell them? He says, tell them, Ekia, Asher Ekia, right? Aleph Hey, and then Yud Hey, that's my name. Rashi says, what does that mean? Tell them that just like I'll be with them in this galus, I'll be with them in all the other galusim. So Moshe says, Ayvei, Daya, Litzar, B'shaita. It's enough they have to hear about this galus. You want me to tell them about the other galusim? So Hashem says, you're right. Just tell them, Ekia. So Taras Chaim says, why is Hashem telling Moshe to tell Bnei Yisrael, I'll be with them in all the other galusim? What do they need to know about that for? Says the Taras Chaim, because Hashem knows that if Moshe is going to come to Bnei Yisrael and say, it's time to go free, Bnei Yisrael says, what? We've only done 1/5. So Hashem says, yeah, but don't worry. Don't think Moshe is making this up. You'll have to make up the time. Ekya asher ekya. Just like I'm with them now, I'll be with them in all the future galusim. In other words, this is not just free information that Hashem is telling Bnei Yisrael. Hashem wants Bnei Yisrael to understand that they're not just going free just like that, but rather they're going to have to make up the time. And the Taras Chaim ends with the following. Says the Taras Chaim, how many years did they leave early? 344. The pasuk says in Va'aschanan, it says, Ki soiled banim uvnei banim, be careful v'noishantem ba'aretz, ki avoid toivedun, you'll go lost. And then the pasuk says, Ki hishamed tishamedun, right? We know there's a concept in the Shas, when the Goyim afflict us, what is it called? Shmad. Why Shmad? Shmad is 344. The reason why the Shas calls the afflictions of the Goyim Shmad is because these are the 344 years that we still need to make up. That's why it's called Shmad. That's why it's called Shmad. Okay? So we did 86 out of the 430. We did 1/5. We still have Shmad to make up, 344. Who is able to take us out of Mitzrayim? Who takes Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim? Moshe Rabbeinu. That means Moshe was able to extract us from how many?
345.
Shmad.
345.
Because Moshe Rabbeinu is 345. Moshe is the gematria 345. He's one more than 344. Moshe Rabbeinu, who's 345, he was able to take us out of the 344 years. Says Hashem, how do I know you're the man for the job? V'zeh lecha ha'ois. It's the one letter that you're more than Shmad. That's the sign. Ki anochi shalachticha, says the Chidah in the Simchas HaRegel, number 12. Says the Chidah, how did we know Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who was able to take us out of the Shmad? Because he's Moshe, he's one more than the 344. Yeah.
Can't you say that Moshe was not his given name, it was his given name because it was going to the water?
Okay. But he had it. But that's why he was the one selected. That's why he was chosen. He had this koyach to be mala us from the Shmad, from the 344 years. Says the Chidah in the Sefer Rosh David. By the way, the first thing is number 10. The Chidah quotes the Taras Chaim, and then he quotes the Sefer Lev Aryeh. The Lev Aryeh was a darshan nifla. He also wrote a Parsha on Masechta Chulin. Chidah says that's why Kol hamakabel olav ol Torah ma'avirin mimenu o malchus ve'el derches. Why? Because you find in Shas that when a Talmid Chacham says something, we say Moshe Shaper Ka'amrit. Moshe said very good. What do you mean Moshe said very good? His name's not Moshe. His name was Rava. His name was Abai. His name was Ravina. The Arizal says every Talmid Chacham has a koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu. So someone who's makabel on himself the Ol Torah. The Ol Torah means you have the koyach of Moshe, which is the koyach to be moitzi you from Shmad 344. So you're able to extract you from the Ol Malchus ve'Ol Darachatz. That's what the Chidah says.
Which is Shmad.
Says the Chidah. This is from the Sefer Rosh David. Chidah says, back to Gvia ben Pesisa. Gvia ben Pesisa comes to the Mitzrayim and he says, you owe us how much? The workload of 600,000 Jews who worked for 430 years. So we have a question. But we didn't work for 430 years. We worked for 86 years. 1/5 of that amount. Says the Chidah, it's true, we only work 1/5 of that amount. But 3 million Jews worked because only 600,000 Jews left Mitzrayim. But 1/5 of Klal Yisrael left. That means 5 times that amount worked in Mitzrayim. So it's the same exact cheshbon. 600,000 Jews. Basically, they did work for 430 years. You know why? You had 3 million Jews. Break up those 3 million Jews into 600,000. You get? Each one worked 86 years, which is 430 years. In other words, 600,000 Jews working 430 years is the same thing as 3 million Jews working 86 years.
Yes.
It's the same exact cheshbon, says the Chida. Gvia ben Pesisa was right on the money.
How you know what this?
Because it says Vachamushim.
Chamushim, yeah.
So basically what Gvia ben Pesisa was saying was that 600,000 Jews, they worked for 430 years. Why? 3 million Jews worked 86 years. If you break those 3 million Jews into 5 parts, 600,000 Jews, they worked for 430 years. It's the same cheshbon. Comes the Chida, and the Chida takes this to town. Says the Chida, look at number 12. Chida says,
Which one was number?
Number 12.
12.
Chida says, why didn't Bnei Yisrael believe that Hashem was going to take them out of Mitzrayim? Mi kaitzer ruach, says the Chida. Mi kaitzer is Gematria 430. They thought we needed to be in Mitzrayim, how long? Mi kaitzer. Mem is 40, Kuf, 140, Tzadi, 230, 430 years. But they didn't realize it was only going to be Avoida. What's Avoida?
86 years.
Avodah is 86. They thought they had to be in Mitzrayim Mikaitzer 430. They didn't realize it was only May Avodah Kash. It was only going to be 86 years. Says the Chida. Let's go back to the Psukim in number 7. Vayihi bayomim harabim hohem. It was in those days. Vayomas malach Mitzrayim vayonchu bnei Yisrael mino avodah vayizaku vatal shavasam el ha Elokim. What's the gematria of Elokim?
86.
Right, you know the joke. The guy came back from a tish. He said, "What is all these mechasidah shemaisas?" The Rebbe said, "Elokim is 86. The kuf alone is 100." Right?
Elokim.
Right? But Elokim is what? 86. Batal Ashavasam El Ha Elokim. So your outcry went Ha Elokim. 5 times Elokim. The 430 years they were supposed to serve. So what happened? Vayishma Elokim knocked it down 186. Vayizkar Elokim knocked it down another 86. Vayar Elokim knocked it down a third 86. Vayeda Elokim, says the Chida, knocked it down 4 sets of 86. Through which mitzvah? The mitzvah, the Dalet Kaisais. Kais is 86. We have the Dalet Kaisais. That's Kais Yeshua Esa. That's salvation from what? From Shmad. From the 344. And who took us out of the Shmad? Moshe. Why Moshe? V'zeh lecha ha'ois. That was the additional ois. Says the Chida. Vayar, Vaytal Shavasam El Ha Elokim to the 586s. Vayar Elokim, Vayishma Elokim, Vayeda Elokim, Vayizkar Elokim. 4 Elokim was Mamaitzi. Okay. Says the Chida. Okay, very nice numbers, you know. It's pretty amazing. But,
yeah, it's amazing.
So Moshe took us out of Mitzrayim. He was 345. He was one more than 344. In what zechus did we leave Mitzrayim? Havdon es holakim al ha'harazah. The Torah. How many chalakim of Torah are there?
5.
Not how many chumashim. How many chalakim? Pardes.
4.
Pshat, Remez, Rosh, and Side. 4 parts of Torah. Each part, and the zechus of each part, it took away from one of the chalakim of the shibud. Says the Chida, the gematria of Pardes is 344. In the zechus of Pardes, in the zechus of the Torah, in the zechus of the 4 chalakim of Torah, Pardes, Pei Reish, it works out, 280, right? 344, exactly. In the zechus of Torah, Hashem took us out of the Shmad. That's why, Kizman Sha'akol Kol Yaakov, when we learn Pardes, 344, Ein Yadayim Yidei Esav, there's no Shmad. Either one or the other. Either you learn Torah, you have to pick which 344 you want. You want Shmad or you want Pardes. Says the Chida, the night of Pesach, we understand that in what zechus was it Vayeda Elokim, Vayar Elokim, Vayishma Elokim, Vayizkar Elokim, in the zechus of Pardes. We make a special Birchas HaTorah. We thank Hashem. Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu. Baruch shenasan tar l'amo Yisrael, Baruch Hu. We say Baruch 4 times. Why 4 times? 4 chalakim of Torah. Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Said. Says the Chida.
The four times. Why everybody learning Sod?
Since not everybody learns Said.
So it's not completed.
So he says.
It's not completed. Lots of people don't.
Baruch Hashem, we have it. But that is why we only say, one time, we say Baruch HaMakom, Baruch Hu. We say one time, Baruch Shenasan Torah Li'amo Yisrael, Baruch Hu. One time we say Baruch Shenasan Torah Li'amo Yisrael. Why? That's for Pshat. Pshat everybody learns. One time we say Baruch Shenasan Torah. The other 3 chalakim, for those who are Zaycha. But it was in the Zechus of Moshe. 345. He took us out of the 344 in the merit of Pardes, which is 344. That's why we have the Dalet Kaises 86. Each Kais was Vayishma Elikim, Vayiskar Elikim, Vayed Elikim. And in that merit, when the pasuk says U'Moshe b'nei Yisrael sheyashu Mitzrayim, it was supposed to be 4:30, and that's why b'nei Yisrael couldn't understand. It was Mikaitzer Ruach. We're supposed to be here Mikaitzer 4:30. They didn't realize it was only going to be Avodah, which is 86.
Ruach is Redu.
But we only there Ruach. The Chida says that. It was on the Zechus of Chida. Abaisai. Have a great day.
God bless.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.